and Julian Edelman was brilliant in that game.
Yeah.
It was yeah. Good.
Well, no, let's have a big hug fest. I mean, it's true.
Yeah.
They weren't going to necessarily beat Seattle with the deep ball. I mean, they were going to have to take what Seattle gave them until they could take some shots down the field, which they ended up doing with Gronk and LaFell.
Yeah, and Brady averaged 6.5 yards per attempt for the day, which is nothing. I mean,
nothing.
You look at Russell Wilson, 247 on 21 attempts, and that puts him at 11.8. So it's like double when you talk about passing depth and who's really testing who. The Patriots just went out and did what they do and just executed. And at the end, they made one more play than Seattle could.
And I like the patience they have with Gronkowski because it wasn't there in the beginning of the game, and they didn't try to force it to him. And then all of a sudden, he was getting single coverage with a linebacker, and that's when they started saying, all right, start throwing it to him. And it was nice to see, because I was afraid they were going to try to force the subject with him. But they were patient, and then when it was there, they took full advantage of it.
What was great was 4 different wide receivers had touchdowns. Edelman, Amendola, LaFell, Gronkowski. They didn't overly rely on any one person, except I would say Julian Edelman and secondly Rob Gronkowski, more or less to create field position with many of their passes. But yeah, what I thought was interesting looking at the numbers after the game was the fact that the Seahawks outplayed the Patriots on offense, 396 yards to 377. And if I'm correct, Keith, you can check me on this, Patriots controlled the time of possession.
Yes, they did. They actually held the ball for 33 and almost 34 minutes, and Seattle 26 minutes.
Well, I mean, that's sort of Russell Wilson and Marshawn Lynch had a great game.
Yeah.
They literally outplayed the Patriots offense by these numbers.
Yeah, no, it's you, and the kicker is that you have all these numbers and all these advantages, and Seattle just had to make one more yard. You know what I mean? And it would have been a totally different outcome. Now, a lot of that was because they were put in position by that amazing catch by Jermaine Kearse.
Yeah.
Just concentration and focus and staying with it. I mean,
which, by the way, that will be, I'm sure, one of the clips when they discuss whatever this rule on controlling the ball down to the ground.
Yeah, but he had the ball.
No, but I'm saying if you read that rule literally, technically that was an incomplete pass, but it wasn't because it never technically did anything but get batted around by people. Sort of like TOs.
No, wait a minute.
No, the ball never touched the ground.
The ball never touched the ground.
But see, we have to debate whether it did or did not touch the ground in such a way that it was an incomplete pass.
It never touched the ground.
I don't want to go there. I don't want you guys. I don't want to go there. I'm not going there.
Because you're wrong.
But I'm saying, no. There's a lot of people that would disagree with you.
Well, show me them.
Myself.
Show me them. Because that ball never touched the ground. He caught the ball, had it in his belly, and got up and ran with it. That ball never touched the ground.
No. I understand that. I'm talking about Des Bryant's catch.
Oh, well, yeah, that's another story.
So
that one we're not going to hash up again. No.
So what I want to know is...
But it was a fantastic catch, just to finish that up.
I want to know exactly what concussion test was given to Julian Edelman after that Cam Chancellor hit. Because I was watching that, and when he got up from that hit, he was Batman. He was looped. You could look, the camera looked at his eyes. That man was on Mars. And even Dan Patrick at the end of the game said when he was interviewing Edelman, that Edelman looked like he was just phased still. But they say he passed a concussion test. I don't remember him leaving the field to take a concussion test.
No, he didn't. They did everything that they could in their power to keep him from the doctor. The doctor wanted to do a concussion test. Yeah. And they kept the doctor from him.
Yeah.
And
now they're saying he passed it. It's like, well, he didn't leave the game, so he didn't take that test after the hit.
Exactly.
Because that man, you saw when he got up, he was just spaghetti-legged and just gone. That was an insane hit.
I honestly don't remember this. So, I mean, I believe it because I've seen the little news clips floating around today discussing it. So I'll leave it at that. But I don't know. I mean, if it certainly they should have pulled him out of the game if he had a concussion. Yeah, they should have let the doctor test him. Oh, of course he is. He's a real
especially
tough
after it happened earlier in the game with Seattle, where they lost their defensive player who took a hit and he got a concussion. Which I didn't realize that when you get a concussion in the NFL, you cannot even, like they said, if Seattle had won, the player would not have been allowed back onto the field to do interviews after the game.
Right.
Which is insane. I don't necessarily understand that.
I don't say that again.
They have said that when you suffer a concussion, you have to leave the field. You're not allowed back on the field, and that includes after the game for like post-game interviews. You cannot go back on the field. So they were saying that if they won the Super Bowl, even though it's the Super Bowl, that guy still wouldn't have been able to go out and do like the trophy presentation and all that. He would have had to have stayed in the locker room.
That's beyond dumb.
No, I actually, well, as I recall, there was a reason why they placed it. And I couldn't tell you exactly, but I think it had to do with a player that was interviewed after he had sustained a concussion. He was not all there.
Oh, I got you.
And he wasn't being he just wasn't answering things properly. And I think that's why they do it. They want to pull you out of that situation. You had a concussion, and we're going to deal with that, and that's it.
That does make sense. I didn't really think about it that way. That does make sense.
But I'm pretty sure there was a specific player, a specific incident that caused that. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm sure there probably was.
Hey, how about that Seahawks defense shutting down LeGarrette Blount? I mean, shutting him down.
Well, I mean, that's what they do.
I know, but man, no messing around.
If you're in the 14 carries for 40 yards, longest carry of the night was 9-yarder. When you're throwing the ball 50 times for 5 yards, dinking and dunking all night. If you're a Pittsburgh Steeler, not a fan, but a Pittsburgh Steeler, does him up there accepting that trophy bother you?
Oh.
If having LeGarrette Blount being a champion, holding that trophy, does that bother you if you're a Pittsburgh Steeler?
No. Not me. Not me personally. Wouldn't bother me.
In my opinion, they still have the better of the two running backs in Bell, so.
Yeah, but it's just he got there in training camp, Bell and Blount to get busted, in training camp for drugs in a car or whatever, and just seemed like Blount was there making more distractions than he was really worth. And then he gets mad about playing time and kind of walks off the field before the game is over, and then obviously they part ways because Pittsburgh's not going to have any of that. And then he goes.
Yeah, that's really the Patriots. I mean, that's on the Patriots. However, they've treated him since then.
Yeah, I know, but if I'm a Steelers player, here's a guy that wasn't all that good of a citizen here, and now he's up there getting all the limelight. It wouldn't be the first and foremost thing on my head, but it would bother me a little.
Well, I mean, and you think he was only in Pittsburgh for such a short time that I think it would be different if it was like a year or two that he was with the team and he was a distraction, like a Percy Harvin. If he was, on a team for a couple of years and was a big distraction and then leaves under these extraneous circumstances. Blount really wasn't a factor with Pittsburgh because of how successful Bell was. So, I mean, I bet there's some Pittsburgh fans who are not diehards that didn't even know he was on the team.
The way the Patriots handle LeGarrette Blount really goes towards a very poor characterization of special players. He was treated like a special player. Even though he quit on the team, they picked him up and they let him play right away. There wasn't any, hey, we've got running backs ahead of you, or let's work you back into our playbook, or, and to me, it's the message that's sent to the team. But, my belief is whatever those messages are, the Patriots picking up LeGarrette Blount and playing him was consistent with those messages. And if they weren't, too bad players, because we're doing it that way.
Right. Right.
But for the rest of us, we look at it and go, well, he wasn't a good citizen. So why are you rewarding him?
Right, that's what I'm saying. If you're a Pittsburgh Steeler at home watching this, your team's out of it. Your team's not in it, and like that guy was supposed to be part of you, and now he's up there just, and not because you decided he wasn't good enough. It's because he acted up and forced your hand. It would just sit rotten with me. I don't know.
Yeah, I think they got bigger issues than that.
Oh, I'm sure they do. I'm just saying.
Do you need a hug, Keith?
No, just the people they get rewarded for acting like a fool irritate me.
There's no sport that does it better than the NFL.
You're absolutely right.
Oh, yeah.
I heard so many comments this past week about I can't even like to the degree of I can't believe they let the Patriots play over this freaking deflate gate.
That's interesting. What are they going to do now?
Oh, with deflate gate, they could lose a draft pick. Probably like a 7th round draft pick or something like that.
But here's how the story is going to play. Even though it's sort of playing in this way, but it's not really beneficial. The NFL is going to come out and say that Deflategate had nothing to do with the Patriots winning the Super Bowl.
Which it didn't.
No.
I know, but then it begs the question. Well, then what does it have to do with? Is it gamesmanship? Is it? I had an interesting conversation with my brother-in-law this weekend, and he's a bright guy. And the conversation really, it sort of goes like this. Tom Brady, just because he wants to have the ball inflated to 11 pounds, he likes to throw, who cares? And if Andrew Luck wants it at 12 pounds, who cares?
Exactly.
They're using their own balls. Go ahead and let them use it that way.
I mean, the NFL has a standard for consistency, and I get that. And if the Patriots did anything to subvert that, like, have the referee checks it, says it's good, and then all of a sudden you sneak it away and let air out, that I have a problem with. But there's a range in that, and if the balls are in range when the ref checks them, then that's it. That's the game, and let it play. If one quarterback likes a firmer ball, it doesn't bother me. Then you know what I mean?
Keith, here's the thing. I mean, well, first of all, the ball is going to have some weight in it, some air. It's not going to be 0 pounds because you can't throw a ball with no air in it, period.
Right.
You can't play with it.
Right.
So it's going to have something that's going to make the ball playable. And quite frankly, I mean, think of baseball. Pitchers get out there and they work the ball over with their hands in front of the national TV audience. And if the ball's scuffed up or something, they look at it, they look at the umpire and just hold it up and they get a new ball.
Right.
Yeah.
Every time they want it. Anytime they want it.
Right.
And that's why
what's the problem here?
Well,
that's why I call this gamemanship. And they even had an interview with Joe Montana prior to the Super Bowl where he said that he used to mess with the footballs, not necessarily take air out, but every quarterback messes with the footballs. It's just the way it is. And just like you said, Jim, it's the same as a pitcher getting a baseball. It's not like they're changing the dynamic of the football. They're just tweaking it a little bit. And that's what every team does. And the fact that the Patriots are getting pointed out for this, it does look like a witch hunt. It really does.
Well, here's the thing. This is why I think now that we know who won the Super Bowl, it's going to affect the story in terms of, well, first of all, the NFL has to take the position that Deflategate did not affect the outcome of the AFC Championship. They have to. And it did not affect the outcome of the Super Bowl. There's nothing about this ball being less than regulation such that it really gave such an advantage to the Patriots. Because if they can't do that, then this whole championship is in question.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Which is dumb. Yeah. And once again, we go back to the Indianapolis game. The balls that were fixed at halftime when the Patriots outscored them 28-0.
So one of two things is going to happen. Either they're going to somehow resolve it by saying, we've talked to him. This individual who was taking air out, he made a mistake. We can't find any connection to this or that. And it's going to somehow sort of, I think, go by the wayside. Or if they really do take some action and say, you violated the spirit of the rules, and we're going to take away a draft pick. I mean, people are going to scream that it's unfair, and to some degree, I think it kind of is.
Yeah.
I mean, what are we doing here?
And if you
do we want to see this is a sport that is engaged in rules that are supposed to make this a passing game. Well, you know what, guys? The one rule you didn't change that you should have changed was this rule about how much is in the football.
Yeah.
Well,
so change it.
Well, there's a rule. It's got to be between 10.5 and 12.5 psi. or whatever.
I think it's 11 and a half. Well, no, I think it's 12 and a half and 13 and a half.
12 and a half and 13 and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah.